this may sound super obvious, but no one really says this, is that you can't just go out on eBay or Craigslist and buy a personal brand. You can't buy Brene Brown's influence. You can't buy Tony Robbins' influence. Even if you were to acquire the rights to their intellectual property and their customer databases, their social media accounts, you can't buy it. When it comes to this thing called a personal brand, everyone starts from zero.
Hi, and welcome to the Innovative Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Isolde Trachtenberg. On the show, you get my conversations with peak-performing thought leaders, creatives, and entrepreneurs. We explore how you can innovate through creativity, compassion, and collaboration. I believe that innovation combined with compassion and creative thinking can save the world, and I aim to bring you ways you can do it too. If you're enjoying the show, I'd be super grateful if you could support it by buying me a cup of coffee. You can buy me a cuppa at buymeacoffee.com/IsoldeT. And now, let's get on with the show. Hey there, and welcome to the Innovative Mindset Podcast. My name is Isolde Trachtenberg. I am thrilled that you're here, and I'm so happy and thrilled and honored to bring you this week's guest. Mike Kim is a speaker and marketing strategist, and that is putting it lightly, who specializes in brand strategy and copywriting. He's been hired by some of today's most influential thought leaders, brands including John Maxwell, Donald Miller, Suzanne Evans, and Catalyst. For years, he was the chief marketing officer of a successful multi-million-dollar company near New York City. Nowadays, you're going to find him speaking at conferences, looking for the next great place to scuba dive, which I love, or sipping a glass of Macallan 15, which I also love, all while teaching everything he knows about branding, entrepreneurship, and life through his hit podcast, Brand You. Mike, I'm so thrilled that you're here. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Isolde, thank you for having me. It is a pleasure to be here. I hope to add some value to you today and to all of our listeners. And I knew you were a good woman of taste. Macallan 15 is the way to go. Nothing lesser.
Oh, absolutely. It's so smooth. Okay, we could talk whiskey till the cows come home, but let's not do that. So talk to me about what's going on with you. You have a brand new book, your first, coming out tomorrow. Talk to me about You Are the Brand, which I love as the title. What prompted you to write the book now?
Well, it's funny, and thank you for allowing me to share a little bit about this. It's funny because I signed a book deal about 5 years ago.
Oh, wow.
I was supposed to write this book 5 years ago. My publisher signed me 5 years ago. And then my personal life went sideways a little bit, and I just had no creative energy to write the book. And every year that passed since then, I was kind of getting my bearings in life and in business and all that sort of thing. Last year happens, right? The quarantines, the lockdowns and everything, I travel a lot. And of course that came, much to a halt. And I thought about, what am I going to do this year? And I had a friend tell me, because I had done a lot of little things. I've built a lot of programs and stuff like that. But I found myself getting a little frustrated because I always felt like I was a hamster on the wheel running around. And he said to me, "Hey, you do a lot of things. You're very busy. You're always kind of moving on the move. But, it's really fun to build things that last a long time." And he's a multiple time best-selling author. And he shared that with me. He said, maybe this is the time you build a book. I mean, you don't have to do it this year, but it's fun to build things that will take and last years. And I really took that advice to heart, hunkered down, called my publisher back, hired a book coach, hired several coaches, and just started writing. And I was like, if there's anything I walk out of from this year of being locked down because of the coronavirus and all that, it's going to be a book. And that is the hard and fast truth of it. I mean, I think there are a lot of books that never make it to the light of day because their authors decide to give up. And I did that for a while, but I was like, this will be the year that I really, really, put this into play. And I'm really glad I did. So that's why I wrote it.
Ah, that's fantastic. I love it. And there, so much of what you just said made me go, I have to ask all these questions. here the one that sticks in my head though is there is this notion that we can do something, but then there's the imposter that goes, "You really can't do this." You know, the little voice inside your head that's tap dancing and telling you not to. And
Mm.
it sounds like you had some strategies that allowed you to go, "You know what? No, I've gone through all sorts of infernos and now I'm coming out the other side and I'm going to do this." Did you have a voice inside your head? And if so, what did that voice say?
The voices. So the big there's a lot there. I would say that I joked after I finished the book, but I don't think it was a joke. I was like, this is like the third hardest thing I've ever done
Mm,
in my life. And partially it was because I was writing about a time in my life that was really difficult to revisit.
mm,
My life turned out very different than I thought it would all those years ago when I first signed this book deal. Um, Secondly, my writing style changed over the years
hmm,
because I had been a blogger. I had written stories and a lot of that stuff, but the last 5 6 years I've really spent more as a copywriter in the marketing space,
mhm,
which is to make sales. And when I sat down to write this book, it was a completely different discipline of writing. Actually, one of my friends, Karen Anderson, who served as a book coach for me through the process, she's like, she's known me for a long time. She said, "Hey, your book has no heart in it."
oh, wow.
She's like, "It's got great facts, it's got great frameworks, it's got great information, but I need some more of your personality in this. I need the warmth that is, who you are. I need the humor. I need a little bit more story, to contextualize everything." And the entire book really is about that journey from how I reinvented myself. I had walked away from a pretty established career, stepped into a new career, got a job as the chief marketing officer, as you mentioned, for that company. And then within 2 years, I left to start my own business. So, really, that 3 to 4 year period of my life was very turbulent. I look back on it now and I'm just like, I don't know how I survived that
Mm,
or what I did. But when I look back on what I intuitively did, the good things that I did, that's what made it into the book. And all these years since, I've tested these frameworks, tested how to coach people in building a personal brand. And I'm actually really glad that the book is coming out now because it is, 2 grades better than what it would have been 5 years ago. And you can't mess with the timing. I mean, just in the last year and a half, we've all experienced this lockdown and shutdown, and people are really rethinking work. They're working from home a lot more. And it is the perfect time for this book to come out. So I'm very, very grateful for all those things. But yeah, there were definitely voices that were like, this is a pain. I hate this. This is like slogging through mud. And I just kept on putting one foot in front of the other and doing it.
and, you know, it's funny that you say that the voices were saying, "This is a pain, you're going through molasses." When you're in the stew, when you're in it and you're just like, "I just have to put one foot in front of the other." Do you have, any practices, anything that you do that goes, "Okay, I'm gonna get my head back in the game, I'm gonna get myself right to do this," or is it just survive at all costs for you?
Hmm. Well, one of the things that I really did was stop trying to do it the right way.
Mm,
Because when I have all these friends who are authors and they're like, oh, yeah, I use this Scrivener program. It's like some software program that people write books in.
mhm,
Right. And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll use that. Oh, yeah, it makes it so easy. And I'm like sitting there on my computer as old. And I'm like, I don't know how to use this program. I've never used this before. My job is not to learn how to use a new program, it's to write a book. Right. So I stopped doing that. Then I was like, okay, well, I just got to tough it out. Butt in seat. That's what I heard all the time. BIS, butt in seat.
mhm,
Right. Just start writing. And then I'd sit down at my computer and I wouldn't write. And I realized it's because I was on my computer all day because of
mm,
Zoom calls.
mhm,
So I hated sitting on, like sitting at my computer. It just drove me crazy.
right.
So then I tried to write in bed with my laptop, and that wasn't good either because I was like, okay, so this is crazy. What I actually did was I took everything out of these, godforsaken programs that everyone's telling me to use, dumped everything into Google Docs, and just started writing the book on my phone.
Mhm,
And I would chip away at it. I live in Virginia, just outside of Washington D.C. right now, and as soon as a couple of places opened back up, bars, restaurants, whatnot, I would go out. I would call an Uber. I would clack away on my phone in Google Docs in the 20, 30 minutes in the Uber, sit down at the bar and just clack away on my phone. And I just chipped away at this thing over, the course of like probably 9 or 10 months,
Mm-hmm.
and just kept refining, setting it into the editor, getting feedback, refining. And that was really the first and most important thing. I had to find out what worked for me and be okay with that. The second thing I think I really had to do, to push through that, was to create deadlines that I definitely had to stick with. Like, I told the publisher, here's the release date I want. I went ahead and had the meeting with the publishers, and they're like, okay, we've all decided it's going to come out July 13th, right? I'm like, sure. And I mean, every step of the way, they're like, we cannot print your book if you don't get this in by this day. And those self-imposed deadlines are actually how I work. And this is just how I've worked in business. Anytime that I've really needed to get something done, I've made promises to other people that it would be done.
Mm-hmm.
And that has forced me to take action. Those deadlines have driven action. I'm very grateful to my publisher, Morgan James Publishing. They're very patient with me, in a lot of ways. I was picky about the artwork. I was picky about the typeface in the book and all that. But all this is, it's a journey as a creative. It's a journey as a leader. It's a journey as a journey in self-expression, to really understand yourself more. And I feel so much better equipped if I ever write another book again, which I probably will. But I've learned a lot about myself through this process.
I'm taking all that in for a second because there was so much in what you just said. I love, 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 love that you said that how much you learned about yourself as part of writing the book. And it's funny to me that you said that it took patience on the part of your publisher because you were picky about things. And I'm like, well, I've written 6 books, and by gum, you better be picky. It's your baby,
Mm.
and believe me, when you hold it for the first time, it's going to be amazing. I wrote this, but yet this notion of learning a lot about myself. I keep, this is the Innovative Mindset podcast, so I keep coming back to that. What did you learn? What was the thing that changed from before you wrote the book to when you gave it to the publisher and said it's finished? What was the transformation inside you?
I think the biggest thing for me with that was understanding, and this is a little bit more out there. When quarantines first happened, it really slowed my life down like it did for a lot of other people.
Mm,
And I thought I had this dream one day, or like, I don't know, just one of these meditative experiences about what I really wanted to do with my life. And I realized, I was like, I don't know that I'm doing it yet. Or maybe that changes. Who knows? Right.
mhm,
And I said to myself, what will really live on after I'm gone? And again, this is framed by what my friend Jeff told me. It's fun to build things that last.
mhm,
And as I was writing this book, I realized, you know what? My nephews are going to read this. They're going to read this if they want to. It'll be there, even after I'm long gone. They're 5 years old and 3 years old right now. And when I had that kind of experience, that this little dream thing, one of those in between waking and sleeping moments,
mm,
I was like, I just want to write stories. I just want to tell stories. Stories are what live on. We read stories from hundreds of years ago that were written. Thousands of years ago, these stories have been written, and we still repurpose and reinterpret and re-express them today. So while I love marketing and I love business coaching, I felt very strongly what I really wanted to do later on was tap back into telling stories and writing. Um, the book has opened up or reignited part of my creative muscle
mm,
to write, to just write for the sake of sharing my thoughts, sharing my feelings, but also holding space and creating space for other people to write. Not too long ago, back in March, when there were a lot of crazy events going on in the country, and there was a shooting in Atlanta
mm,
of many Korean women. working at this massage parlor really impacted me, because I was like, these women, like my mom's age,
Mm.
there's a lot of anti-Asian hate going on. And I wrote an article, Isolde, just on my blog, and it went viral.
Mm.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of people read this. And the feedback I got was just as, if not more fulfilling than the feedback I got from my clients. Hey, thanks for helping me discover my voice or giving me clarity on my marketing strategy. But I realized with just a few strokes on the keyboard, I could really create space and hold space for people, or for the world at large. And I don't know what that looks like yet.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I've just published the book. It comes out tomorrow. Right. But, and I'm not in a rush to leave the business and marketing space, but I'm starting to get an inkling of what I might want to do in the next phase of my life. And that's been really funny. I don't think it would have happened had it not been for writing this book.
I love the notion that it's opening that part of you almost up again. You're such a creative person in all ways that I've seen. You're one of my teachers. I've learned so much from you, and yet, and not yet, but and also learning something like marketing and business from someone who is a creative like you is so fulfilling and inspiring. And at the same time, this is a strange question, because we who are in sort of the entrepreneur space forget that most people aren't in it, right? But if you
Mm.
want to further a cause or a business, it seems like it's a great idea to to build that brand. And so I guess the question is, how much do you think your personal brand, you, Mike Kim, your personal brand will help your efforts in that next phase? Whenever that comes, you may not be in a hurry to leave the personal brand business, but when that next phase comes, how much of what you've built already will help you move forward?
I think it helps a lot. And this is one of the concepts that I cover in the book, the path of the personal brand, right? And one of the most unique and challenging things about building a business around myself,
Mhm.
which I've done and you've done certainly as well. We hear this phrase personal brand thrown out around a lot. And my best attempt to define what a personal brand is basically a public identity you've crafted for an express purpose, right? And it's a confluence of your ideas, your expertise, your reputation, and your personality. That's an identity, all those things in one.
Mhm.
And the funny thing that I've seen in this space, and this may sound super obvious, but no one really says this, is that you can't just go out on eBay or Craigslist and buy a personal brand. You can't buy Brene Brown's influence. You can't buy Tony Robbins' influence. Even if you were to acquire the rights to their intellectual property and their customer databases, their social media accounts, you can't buy it. When it comes to this thing called a personal brand, everyone starts from zero. So when people talk about starting a brand, or they ask me, how should I start building a brand? I ask a lot of them, well, what do you want it to do for you? And they often say this, is although they said, well, I want to do whatever I want. And
Ah.
they want to like live in this magical place, which I've since dubbed the land of whatever I want. And they'll say things like, oh, look at The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, or Oprah, or Gary Vaynerchuk, or Joe Rogan. They can make money doing anything they want. And what most people don't understand is that there's a path to a place of that kind of influence that these folks have reached, but it requires that you walk through this really lonely place that I call the valley of focus.
Mm.
So I can jump into this if that's cool, because I
Sure, of
think this will
course.
be fun for us to talk about. So let's say you start your journey, you write blog posts, you share some inspirational quotes on social media, you start a new podcast, and unfortunately it doesn't really feel like anyone's listening. And this is totally normal, right? Your friends, your
Mhm.
family, your colleagues, they're a bit confused by what you're doing, and some may even stop following you online because they're like, what is Mike doing? What is this Isolde doing? And you feel more alone than ever. And great news, you're now in the valley of focus. And in this valley of focus, you whittle down all of your random ideas to focus on one topic, one idea, or one market. And you decide, whether you're going to specialize in, helping people get healthy, or make more money, or build better relationships, you narrow your focus even further to determine what you're going to do in that particular market. Marketing is a big market, right?
Mm.
So I had to like narrow that down and say, I'm going to help people with personal branding and copywriting, writing their words. And you start to slowly understand, much like a nightclub or dance club, you can't play 5 different types of music and expect like everyone to come to your place, right? They just don't mix. You have to have clarity. So I experienced this when I started in business and marketing. Probably 90% of the people who followed me just stopped, right? A few of them followed me
Hmm.
As I stepped out into this venture. But what happens is when you stay focused and you get more narrowed down, you become known for a few things, and then just eventually, 1 or 2 things. But strangely enough, this attracts other influential people to you who have followings of their own. And because of that clarity, they may hire you, they may give you a platform, they may give you an opportunity to speak to their audience about your area of expertise. And lo and behold, a bunch of their followers just start following you. Right. And then some other influential person who sees that influential person number 1 connected with you asks you to speak to their audience, and boom, the phenomenon happens all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And you're starting to gain an audience, build an audience, or gain followers rapidly, much more rapidly. And you're sort of becoming this rising star. And over time, and this is where I feel like I'm starting to step into, over time, over many years, your audience keeps following you, not just because of what you know, but because of who you are. You aren't just building a brand, you're becoming your brand. That's the message of the book. You are the brand,
Mm-hmm.
right? And because of all this focus, your work improves, your expertise becomes established, and some of your biggest fans become super fans, if you will, who will gladly follow you into any of your future pursuits. And if you have enough of these people, they will help you reach the land of whatever I want and stay there. Now, I've seen this play out in front of my very eyes with The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. When I was in college, I loved this guy. He was a wrestler, right? Today, everyone knows him as one of the world's biggest action stars, right? He's in all these movies.
Mm-hmm.
But professional wrestling for like 15 years was his valley of focus. And he didn't even really want to become a wrestler. He played college football and wanted to make the NFL, and he
Mm-hmm.
didn't make it, right? So this dude pivots into wrestling, stays the course. Most people don't realize this either. They don't know this. Fans hated The Rock when he was first a wrestler. They booed
Really?
him out of the building. They hated him,
Huh.
right? They just thought he was so cheesy. He thought the character was stupid, and he just kept with it. And the WWE, his company, started to reform his identity, and just started to get really popular. And at the height of his popularity, when I was in college, I remember this, he started to make some movies, and he was just so good. He was so charismatic. He was so entertaining. He started to leave wrestling at times to go shoot these movies. And what happened is the wrestling fans felt like he sold out.
Hmm.
And not all of them were thrilled he was acting. So they just stopped following him. They started booing him when he'd come back to wrestling, even though he's one of the most popular people in the company. And yet, enough people like me watched his movies. I was a fan of him as a wrestler. Enough people like me watched his movies. And now I still follow him on social media. I probably have bought Under Armour, workout gear because he endorses it, right? And he can do whatever he wants. The workout gear, the athletic apparel he sells. Oddly enough, he sells tequila. That doesn't really seem on brand for a guy who, works out all the time. He's drinking tequila, but he can do whatever he wants. But people don't realize, oh my gosh, the guy labored for 15, 20 years as a wrestler. He had to deal with the heartache of not making the NFL. This is not somebody who just said, I'm going to just talk about everything and whatever I want, and people are going to follow me. So all of this, just kind of tying a bow on this, do I feel like my personal brand will help me in future endeavors? Absolutely. I'm not as popular as The Rock, but I do believe that there are some people who have said, Mike, we just like you. We just like what you do. We like what you stand for. And I'm curious to see where you're going to go. and I'm going to follow. And because of that, um, I feel this amount of freedom. I feel a certain amount of freedom and liberty to go explore these new things that I want to.
First of all, I'm so glad that you talked about The Rock because a lot of what you said, it really resonates with me because what I follow him also, and it's not just because he's charismatic, it's because he's welcoming, if you see what I
Hmm.
mean. Like he's doing his thing, and I know there are millions of fans, and it's not like I feel like he is talking directly to me, except for I kind of do.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I think for him it's probably on many levels it's authentic, but also it's very practical, right? It's a very practical, this is who I am and this is what I stand for. And he kind of set all the dominoes up and knocked all the dominoes down. And that's one of the things I really respect about you is that you are, in addition to being creative, you're very practical. You break things down in the work that I've followed with you and the classes I've taken with you in a very um and I hate the word actionable because it's a weird word, but it's really true. If I take action on the things that you recommend, things open up, right? So what, if you can talk about that a little bit, how do you reconcile or combine the very creative parts of who you are with that very practical part of you?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think I have always felt more of a bias towards action. Um, when I've taken various self-assessment, tests and stuff like that,
Mhm.
Strengths Finders was one of them. I don't know
Mhm.
how many of you listening may have heard of Strengths Finders, but with Strengths Finder, number one was Maximizer,
Mhm.
which means that I don't like to start things completely from scratch. I like to take good things and make them great.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh, no wonder I'm a consultant, right? And then number two was implementer, which means I just go do things.
Mhm.
I overthink every other area of my life except for creativity and business. I mean,
Mm.
I'm like I want it done yesterday. I just go do it. It's probably why I work really long hours and get stressed out and stuff, right?
I
Because
hear
I
you.
have more ideas than I can ever execute on.
Right.
And I have realized, I don't know if I came up with this phrase or I heard it somewhere, but I like it. We are idea rich and execution poor.
Mm.
And this world of social media has made that even more of an anathema, if you will. I mean, it
Mm.
is a sickness.
Mm.
It's easy to post other people's ideas, it's really hard to go do them.
Sure.
So when I see other people take a long time to execute on things, it just drives me nuts.
Mm.
Right. And I'm like, okay, that's their own pace. That's their own journey. I'm not going to judge them. But for me, sometimes I can't sleep unless I get it done. So I'm like, okay, I'm biased that way, biased towards action. And then the third strength on Strength Finder it was just a strategic oversight. Like I just see the big picture. I'm always a big picture person,
Mm.
so I'm very bad with little details. It's why I have an assistant that handles these things, right? I'm just like, I have this idea, I want to see this happen, boom, 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 boom. And sometimes I am my own worst enemy because I know how to do too many things.
Mm.
And so I execute very quickly, or I can't wait to get things executed, which makes me a very poor delegator.
Mm.
So I've learned all these things about my workflow and my work life and how I'm made. And I've realized that that has had to force me, Isolde, to grow in other areas. I have to become a better leader.
Mm.
I have to become a more patient person. I have to become more of a visionary and less of a hands-on person.
Mm.
These are all really big areas I have to grow in. We're talking about the innovative mindset, right? I have to innovate those parts of my life. Otherwise, I will relegate myself to living like this until I'm dead. So it's either change and grow and work with people and work with teams, or do this for the rest of my life.
Mm.
And it is what it is. And there's no wrong answer. That's the other thing that I've really realized. There's no wrong answer. I know a lot of people who are like me, and this is what they want to do. That is how they want to live. They
Mhm.
don't want a big team. They don't want an administrator. They don't want people on payroll. They're okay with doing that, right? And then there are other people who have made that shift, and both are valuable. Both are building their business and their life around the kind of life and business they want. So really, I'm at that crossroads where it's like I'm a creative, but I'm also like very, very wired to take action. And the more and more self-aware I become, I see options laid out on the table for me. And it's like, okay, which path am I going to go down? I have to decide. And that's really how I see it.
And it's lovely that it's about self-awareness. So much of this is knowing who you are, knowing what you can offer. And I'm grateful that you talked about that, because I think that's what the book is going to do on a much larger scale for you. Is it's going to take that particular message and amplify it. And so I'm really grateful. I want to say the name of the book because it comes out tomorrow, and you should all go get it. It's You Are the Brand, the 8-step blueprint to showcase your unique expertise and build a highly profitable business. So if you are interested in learning how to do that, you need to go get this book. That's just how it is. Mike, I could keep you for the next 6 hours, but I know you have a life to get back to. So I will ask you the one question. You might remember this, you might not, that I ask everybody who comes on the show. And before I do that, I will say thank you again for joining me. This was so fabulous and wonderful to get to talk to you about your book and about where you are and where you're going. The question is this: if you had an airplane that could skywrite anything for the whole world to see, what would you say?
Oh yeah, I remember this question. Okay. You know what? I've got to say you are the brand.
Okay.
And it's not just because of the book, but it's really the charge that I want to lay out, to my readers, to my friends, to my colleagues. We all have a brand. We all have a reputation. Personal branding, this phrase has become, this popular term now. But it's just your reputation. It's just what people think of you. It's just the identity that you hold in the minds and hearts of people who know you. And I think one of the things I've learned about life through my work is that entrepreneurship, thinking outside the box, it has a way of bringing out the best parts of you and also revealing some of your roughest edges. And in a world of image and social media followers, my message really is, be someone worth following. Truly be who you're trying to sell to people. Whether it's, through an Instagram account for fun, or trying to land a new job, or trying to start your business. Like, you are the brand. Don't just build a brand, be it. Be the brand. That's who you are. And it's a call for us to grow and mature and to be the best version of ourselves. So that's what I would write across the sky. And it's not just because the book's out tomorrow.
No, but you know what? I think that's great. And it's a call to be your authentic self, which is the best way to be, because there's so much that we have to ferret through that isn't authentic and real. And you're calling for us to be real. And I think that's great. Mike, thank you again so much for being here and being so generous with your wisdom and your knowledge. I appreciate it very much.
It was a pleasure to be here, and thank you for sharing me with everybody here today and sharing your platform, Isolde. I really, really appreciate it.
It's my absolute pleasure. This is Isolde Trachtenberg for the Innovative Mindset Podcast. If you want to find Mike Kim, you can go to mikekim.com. You can learn all about him. You can learn all about the book. You can get the book. You should get the book, because obviously he knows his stuff. Until next time, this is Isolde Trachtenberg for the Innovative Mindset Podcast, reminding you to listen, learn, laugh, and love a whole lot. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe to the podcast if you're new. And if you like what you're hearing, please review it and rate it and let other people know. And if you'd like to be a sponsor of the show, I'd love to meet you on patreon.com/innovative mindset. I also have lots of exclusive goodies to share just with the show's supporters there. Today's episode was produced by Isolde Trachtenberg and is copyright 2021. As always, please remember this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, although we can always hope. Until next time, keep living in your innovative mindset.